Hello, I'm Todd Phillips, the editor of Canadian Auto Dealer. We're joined here today by Stephen Poloz, the former governor of the Bank of Canada. He's going to talk to us a bit about some of what he'll be talking about at the upcoming CADA Summit. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here, Todd. Thanks.
Well, as a former governor of Bank of Canada, you, as an economist, I know you advise governments and try to provide an analysis and forecast based on risk, and you like stability and you like to be able to sort of plan ahead. And we've had anything but. Between the pandemic and other global forces of change, has been a very disruptive period. So what do you see really in the months ahead, in terms of economic impact and monetary policy?
Well, Todd, first, that uncertainty we've been through, that I think is something we have to accept as a fact of life as we go forward. There's very fundamental reasons why volatility in business is much higher today, and it's not going to go away just because there's a change in the White House, or as I said, maybe 6 months from now, COVID will be in the rearview mirror. That's what I would expect. So I think it's important for business to be looking beyond COVID and understanding those forces that are underneath the surface, because they've been acting all along, and I think that's where the volatility is coming from. So the economy itself, I like to think of it as a K. I know this has become more popular over time. Joe Biden used it actually in one of the presidential debates, the K-shaped economy. And that's because in the top part of the K, there's a lot of the economy is doing great. And then we've got some really stressed sectors in the bottom part of the K still going down. And I think that K is going to be with us for quite a long time. And that means an elevated unemployment rate for a period of time while the economy adjusts to these new conditions. And it's important for business people to understand that, whether they're thinking about their business or whether they're thinking of investments. Both ways, it's important to understand that. That's what we'll be talking about on February 3rd.
Well, that's great. I'm sure car dealers will be very anxious, because one thing they're very concerned about always is the state of consumer health, financial health. So on that front, I know there's been a lot of talk for years about the debt levels of Canadians. Is it unsupported with this period, with more unemployment and just economic shocks? Is there concern that Canadians are taking on too much, an unsupportable amount of debt? Is that going to be sort of a strain on the system? Is that one of those forces you see going forward that we need to keep an eye on?
So rising debt has been a feature of the past 20 years. It's not a very recent problem. And so for sure, it's one of the most important vulnerabilities of our financial system and the economy itself. What we've seen during the pandemic is people saved a lot of money. In part, this was because of the generosity of the government's programs, and at the same time, there weren't many places to spend your money. People paid down their debts, they put money in their savings account. So most economists believe that there's pent-up demand and there's money available for us to have a pretty good recovery in 2021. Behind that, though, there could still be a risk of a behavior change. Given what we've been through, people may decide they want to save more money forever. They want to have more cash at hand in case this happens again. And if that's the case, then it becomes a precautionary saving that stays in the bank. And so that's a sort of weighing a risk that we have to think about. How vigorous will the recovery be when it comes? So we'll talk about that on February 3rd. There's a lot of complexity to that, and it's not an obvious call to make. Personally, I'm more in the camp that it's going to be pretty vigorous. I think that's most likely. But fact is, interest rates are going to stay low for a really long time. And what matters to people is not their level of debt, it's whether they can sustainably service it, exactly like governments. And if you can, then people have every reason to take on a bit more debt. That's how monetary policy works. It's how it stimulates the economy. So we have to expect one of the consequences will be a rising debt level. And if people can manage it, then it's going to be fine. Is it sustainable? That's a judgment call. Over time, every year it's been a record level of debt, and everybody's worried about it, but it's never caused us a serious problem. So it's really interest rates and unemployment that interact with debt. That's where the risk lies.
That's actually just the last question I had on interest rates. They're so low now for people that are buying homes or investing in anything, even vehicles. So the interest rates are quite low. So you forecast that being low for some period of time. I mean, that'll be good news for mortgage holders, I guess. But is it Is it sustainable to have those levels of really almost historically low interest rates for a sustained period of time?
Well, this is one of the big forces acting under the surface, Todd, that I think it's important for us to talk through when we do get together. And that's the aging demographics of Canadians, not just Canadians, actually, the whole world. So people in my age group have lived through, we are baby boomers. We've lived through the baby boom generation. Well, the fact is we're coming down the other side of that hill now, where people like me are retiring. And global population growth has slowed a lot over the last 10 years. It's going to keep slowing down. And that is the most important driver for economic growth rates and for interest rates. That's the key. So the base for interest rates is drifting down. If inflation picks up normally, then interest rates are going to go back up, but only as much as inflation goes back up. Okay, so the underlying, what we call the real equilibrium interest rate, is going to stay low probably for 30 to 50 years. That's how long we're looking at. All right, so it's not a forecast per se, but it's an understanding of the structural drivers of what interest rates do. And then around that trend, you can have fluctuations in interest rates like we've had historically, you know, up 2%, down 2%, that kind of thing. But the average level will stay low. I think that's something we have to understand.
Well, I'm going to stop you there because I don't want to give away your whole talk. We really look forward to it. And I know that the dealers in attendance who are running businesses and making investment decisions will be listening very keenly on your forecast and analysis. So thanks for joining us here today.
It was a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in February.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Signing off.